Now, these are obviously improper redactions.
And let me stop for a minute.
I'm talking.
If they're not privileged,
quiet.
Don't yell at me. If they're not
Mr. Chairman, would you stop the clock? This is on your
privileged-
time. It's not on Mr. Goldman.
If they're not
Even though
privileged,
you used your
if we review
improper
them and they're not-
redactions
you'll like my answer.
to
If we
continue
review
to
them and they're not
protect
privileged,
Donald Trump.
Congressman Dan Goldman stormed in with explosive proof at a hearing with Attorney General Pam Bondi, and she completely unraveled. He stepped forward with documents from the Epstein files that Pam Bondi is hiding from the public, raised them, and demanded to know why she is shielding Trump while exposing survivors. And when she could not respond, she erupted yelling at him and waving mugshots of immigrants, as if that distraction could bury the truth. Watch this.
New York recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Bondi, I went over to the department yesterday for a couple of hours to review some of the unredacted materials. And I am looking forward to your detailed explanation for why you have withheld almost half of the documents, which is required by the bill. Now, obviously, there are 3 million documents, so I didn't get through much. But one thing I didn't see was the client list that you said you had on your desk a year ago. I did, however, find a couple of important documents. An 86-page prosecution memo from the Southern District of New York and a draft indictment from Florida against Jeffrey Epstein's co-conspirators. For reasons that I cannot understand nor are permitted by the bill, they were still redacted, even for members of Congress. So, Ms. Bondi, will you commit right here to immediately providing those two documents in unredacted form to members of Congress? Not a complicated question.
well, I guess it is for you because you have a law degree and those are privileged.
Okay, they're not privileged, but we will discuss that later. I also found an email that I have right here from Jeffrey Epstein to Ghislaine Maxwell that was unredacted, and it included notes of statements that Donald Trump made about his prior relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. Now, there is no reason for this to be hidden from the American people. There is no privilege, there is no attorney-client privilege, and I see you're checking with your staff, and I can assure you, staff, this is not under attorney-client privilege because it was sent from Jeffrey Epstein to Ghislaine Maxwell. Will you commit to publicly providing the unredacted version of this so that the American people can understand the extent of Donald Trump's lies about his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein?
You're about as good of a lawyer today as you were when you tried to impeach President Trump in 2016. Have you apologized for that in 2019?
So will you unredact this? Will you
were
unredact
lead
this?
counsel on that. Privileged.
I'm asking you, will you unredact this?
Privileged.
Privileged, of course. I look forward to discussing this more. Now, these are obviously improper redactions.
And let me stop for a minute.
I'm talking.
If they're not privileged,
quiet.
Don't yell at me. If they're not
Mr. Chairman, would you stop
privileged,
the clock? This is on your time. It's not on Mr.
If they're
Goldman.
not
Even though
privileged,
you used your
if we review
improper
them and they're not-
redactions
you'll like my answer.
to
If we
continue
review
to
them and they're not
protect
privileged,
Donald
Time belongs to
we
the
will
member.
be happy to release them.
We'll
after
stop the
review.
clock. We'll stop the clock. Time belongs to the member. Go ahead.
Even though you used improper redactions to protect Donald Trump and other predators associated with Jeffrey Epstein, you did the exact opposite thing with the survivors and victims of this scheme. So their identification information was really the only thing required to be redacted, and it was not. And it's clear this was not a mistake. This was not by accident. This was not because you only had 30 days when you really used 75, and that doesn't even include all the hours last March that you were redacting it. But I'll tell you why it's clear it wasn't a mistake. There is an email entitled Epstein Victim List. There are 32 names. One is redacted. 31 are not. So someone looked at it and decided to redact something. And I will tell you that that is clearly intentional to intimidate these survivors and victims. Now, in an interview last week...
How will you tell me that's intentional?
In an interview last week, Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche...
You can't go off script.
...said that any victim that wants to speak with the department has done so, hopefully. Well, thanks to the incredibly brave people sitting here behind you, we can actually ask them if that's true. Now, would the survivors and victims who are here please stand up one more time? Just by show of hands, how many of you or your loved ones actually have met with the Department of Justice and provided testimony and evidence? None. And of those of you who have not met, which is everyone, how many of you have reached out either individually or through a lawyer or representative to offer to provide testimony and evidence? All of them. And of those of you, all of you who have reached out, how many of you were denied or ignored by the Department of Justice? All of them. And despite the shameful and despicable efforts by Ms. Bondi and her department to intimidate you, how many of you are still willing to speak to the Department of Justice? All of them. Well, Ms. Bondi, it looks like you have some more witnesses to talk to.
Gentleman's time has expired.
And I yield back.
We will go to the good gentleman from North Carolina, Congressman Knott.
May I have a moment, Congressman?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Here we go. Here's the photograph. This is why he wanted to repeat everything that had been said previously on Epstein. This is his state, New York. You probably don't even know who this is. Wahid Mohammed from Afghanistan.
Yes, because I'm no longer a prosecutor.
Convicted of assault. Wow, he represents New York. Wow, yet he doesn't care about the illegal aliens convicted of crimes. Assault and homicide. No longer a prosecutor, so he doesn't care about his constituents. Here we go. Arson, El Salvador, Miguel Palacios. Fermin Flores Ramales, Mexico, rape.
Let's talk about the 70% of immigrants who are detained without a criminal conviction or arrest.
Stop the clock. Stop the clock. Time belongs to Congressman Knott.
All right, so if you just watched that and you're thinking what the hell just happened, let me break it down for you, because what you just saw was a sitting attorney general who got caught red-handed protecting the president and retaliating against Epstein survivors. And when she got called out for it, she melted down. He found an email from Jeffrey Epstein to Ghislaine Maxwell that includes notes of statements Donald Trump made about his prior relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, an email from Jeffrey Epstein to Ghislaine Maxwell about Donald Trump's own words describing their relationship, and that email is redacted. It's being hidden from the public. Dan Goldman asked Pam Bondi directly, will you commit to publicly providing the unredacted version of this so the American people can understand the extent of Donald Trump's lies about his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein? And Pam Bondi refuses. She says it's privileged. Attorney-client privilege, except it cannot be attorney-client privilege because the email is not between a lawyer and a client. It was from Jeffrey Epstein to Ghislaine Maxwell. There's no lawyer in that exchange. There's no privilege. And then Dan Goldman gets to the worst part, the survivors, because while Pam Bondi is using improper redactions to protect Donald Trump and other predators, she did the exact opposite with the people Jeffrey Epstein actually victimized. Check this out. The Justice Department has argued that it has been transparent in its review of documents, and redactions have been necessary to protect Jeffrey Epstein's victims, although some victims' names were made public as part of the release, prompting Georgia Democrat Hank Johnson to accuse the department of being sloppy and incompetent. Pam Bondi said the error rate was very low and that the department would make corrections immediately if necessary. She attributed the errors to the painstaking work of going through millions of files in just a matter of weeks. So Pam Bondi's excuse is that they went through millions of files and made some mistakes. Okay, let's test that. Dan Goldman found a document titled Epstein Victim List, 32 names on it. 1 was redacted, 31 were not. Think about that. Someone at the Justice Department looked at a document literally called the Epstein Victim List, decided to redact 1 name out of 32, and left the other 31 completely exposed. That's not a mistake. That's not an accident. That's not because they only had 30 days and were rushing. Someone made a decision to protect one person and expose 31 others, and the only thing those 31 people have in common is that they are survivors of Jeffrey Epstein's abuse. Dan Goldman calls it what it is: intentional intimidation, and then he brings the survivors into the room literally. He has them stand up, and he asks them directly, how many of you or your loved ones have actually met with the Department of Justice and provided testimony and evidence? Check this out. Dan Goldman noted that Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche recently claimed that all Jeffrey Epstein victims who wanted to speak to federal authorities have done so, and ask those in attendance to stand up and raise their hand if any of them have met with the Department of Justice and provided testimony. None did. Then Dan Goldman asks how many of them reached out to the Department of Justice to offer testimony. All of them, every single one. They tried to cooperate, they wanted to help, and then Dan Goldman asks how. Many of them were denied or ignored by the Department of Justice, all of them. So Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche went on TV and said any victim that wants to speak with the department has done so. And that was a lie. A room full of survivors standing in front of Congress just proved it was a lie. They all tried, they were all ignored. And instead of protecting their identities, the Department of Justice exposed 31 of them in the document release while hiding the names of the powerful men who abused them. And Pam Bondi has no answer. She does not dispute it. She does not deny it. She does not explain why they ignored the survivors. Instead, she waits until Dan Goldman's time expires, and then she pulls out a stack of mugshots of immigrants and starts yelling about how Dan Goldman does not care about illegal aliens convicted of crimes. That's not a defense, that's a deflection. She got caught protecting Donald Trump, hiding co-conspirator names and exposing survivors to retaliation. And when she could not explain it, she changed the subject to immigration because she knows she has no answer. And let's talk about the client list for a second, because this connects to something Pam Bondi said a year ago. Check this out. During a February 21st interview on Fox News, host John Roberts asked whether the Department of Justice would release a list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen? John Roberts asked. Pam Bondi responded, it's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by Donald Trump. I'm reviewing that. So a year ago, Pam Bondi said the client list was sitting on her desk. She said Donald Trump directed her to review it, and now she is the Attorney General, and suddenly the client list does not exist anymore. Dan Goldman asked her about it directly. He said he went through the documents and did not see the client list you said you had on your desk a year ago, and Pam Bondi has no response. Either she lied then, or she is lying now. If the client list was on her desk a year ago, where is it now? Why is it not in the document production? And if it was not actually on her desk, why did she say it was? The only explanation that makes sense is that she was using the Jeffrey Epstein scandal for political points before she became Attorney General, and now that she is Attorney General, her job is to protect the people on that list. This is the Attorney General of the United States, the person in charge of enforcing federal law, and she just sat in front of Congress and admitted she is hiding evidence that would expose Donald Trump's lies about Jeffrey Epstein, hiding the names of co-conspirators, and ignoring survivors who want to cooperate while simultaneously exposing their identities in public document releases. And when she got caught, she yelled about immigrants. This is not law enforcement. This is a cover-up, and Dan Goldman just put it on the record. If you want more breakdowns like this, hit like and subscribe, drop a comment.